Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our first mentoring session for the Keep Cool and Carry On Discipline Challenge. I am your host, Jeanne-Marie Penel, and your parenting mentor, and I am joined by my lovely daughter, Eliza Penel, all the way from Scotland. I am in San Diego, so we are doing a daughter-mother team. And Eliza, if you want to unmute yourself and just say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eliza. I'm Jeanne-Marie's daughter. Like she said, I'm living in Scotland. I just graduated in university, and I am just living and working in Scotland. And I am very excited to hear everyone's questions and help as much as I can today. So if you have any questions and you want to ask them for yourself, feel free to use the reactions and raise your hand. If you have a question that you'd prefer I ask for you, you're more than welcome to type it in the chat and I will relay the question. And there's also a Google form which people have asked questions on and from which I will be asking questions later on once all the live questions have been answered.
So yes, thank you. And I've asked Eliza to be here so that we can really focus on your questions. I get a little distracted with the chat and the muting and everything. So she is my helper today so that I can really focus on answering all of your questions. So if there is anybody on the call that already has, that is wanting to ask a question, maybe about the different tools that I have shared so far. So far, we are on tool number 9. This is day 3 of the challenge. And I know, I had some questions on Instagram in my DMs and everything, but if you have some questions here, this is really for you. And then otherwise, we do have some questions that came in earlier on the Google form. So I think I see a hand raised. Do you want to unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you're able to? The call is being recorded and the replay will be on the all access page after. So if you don't want to share yourself, I can understand. All righty.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very
Hi,
well.
I'm Sweta. This is Aradhya.
Oh, hello.
She's 15 months old. Jen, I have already asked you the question about the tantrums on one of the lives. It's like whenever she wants the phone, for example, anything, and I say, no, you should not touch the phone, or then she throws up a tantrum. Like she just falls behind for me to give her. I try to explain her that no, this is not good for you, but she doesn't seem to understand my explanation.
Right.
And she keeps repeating it. After the situation again, we ask her one more the other day, the next day, the same thing happens. She does the same.
So, and you say she's 15 months.
Yeah, she just turned 15 months.
Okay.
She has been doing this from 13 months or so.
Okay. So basically 15 months is, and this is, true for any child basically under the age of 3. And really before that pre-verbal stage, right? They want something and they just want it. They don't need an explanation or anything. It's kind of this, desire, this life force that they have that is guiding them. So one of the things that, I always strongly suggest is really to look first at our environment. Like, are we, do we have an environment that is enticing for them where they want to grab the phone, for example? If that is something that is constantly being repeated and we don't want them to have the phone, let's try to keep it out of sight, right? So that's really one of the first things, is really to look and to observe what it is in the environment that they keep on going back to that we could possibly eliminate, so there isn't that frustration. Because, you know, it's like anything, you know, for me, if you put some chocolate in front of me, I know, you know, I shouldn't be eating all of it, but it's very tempting. It's there. It looks delicious. So and actually it's interesting, because the other day I was reading something about self-control, and this is in adults. But self-control is like a finite resource. When we are constantly putting ourselves in a situation where we have to manage our self-control, we're taking brain power away, and it's a finite resource. So I'm saying this also for the young children. Let's kind of eliminate those things from the environment so that they're not perturbed by it. Now, the other thing about her having a tantrum, this is perfectly normal, right? She's wanting something and you're saying no. She doesn't understand why you're saying no. She doesn't want it. So here I would explain more about the emotion of, oh my gosh, yes, you're very frustrated because you really want that phone, and mommy can't let you have it. My job is to keep things that aren't healthy away from you, and I can't let you have it. Let me put it away in a drawer. And then she will have her tantrum, and that is okay. You know, this is their only way of communicating. This is their way of going, oh my gosh, how can you? I'm having such a hard time. They don't have the verbal skills yet. They don't have that self-control yet. So it's normal. What we need to do is really not like shame them for having this tantrum, but just acknowledging it, just saying, oh my gosh, yes, you're having a really hard time. You really want that phone, and I cannot let you have it. So it's those I messages of, I cannot let you have it, not you can have it, because that we don't really understand. Then, you know, if you can't have it, then I should probably put it out of sight, right? What I was saying earlier. So that's really, I think, all I can say about that tantrums at 15 months are perfectly normal. It is their way of communicating, and we just need to acknowledge that they're having a hard time. Okay. All righty.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. Okay. Do we have another question, Eliza? Oh, you're muted.
We have a question from the Google form.
Okay.
So we have Shweta Tandare, who has a 22-month-old, and has said that their child has become very into their screens, and if they don't get the screen, then it's hard to get them off of it. And
yes, and I saw that actually last night. I was reading some of those, and there's some other screen questions. So this is a big 21st century kind of, you know, parenting issue, right? I personally did not have this issue, because I chose from the very beginning, when my dear Eliza was born, not to have a television in our home. And, you know, it's dating me, but it was 25 years ago. We didn't have cell phones, all of that. There was a computer, because both my husband and I are graphic designers, but it was, you know, really a workstation and so forth. So she was fascinated by it, but it was never something. So again, this is what I was saying earlier. It's about the environment, right? Of what we set up, the choices that we make for our homes, because this is your home. This is your sanctuary, and you get to create it the way you want to for your children. So for 22-month-old to be having access to a screen already, I feel that is way too young. So I'm a big advocate of no screen in early childhood. There is just so much amazing brain activity going on that they do not need a screen, right? That kind of, the screen kind of detracts from what is going on. What they need is real hands-on experience, being out in nature and touching and smelling and tasting and making things with their hands and such. That's what their brain needs, is real sensorial experience. So for me personally, I would, it's going to depend on your household, who else is looking at screens and all of this. But as much as you possibly can is just to eliminate all screens around this 22-month-old child. And I say this with love for any child, really, for me, under the age of 6, even 10. Like, there is no need for screen. There is so much around us in our world, in our environment, in our homes, in conversations, in books, that screens is not something necessary. And I often get, this kind of rebuttal of, oh, but we're in the digital age and, our children. I say that in 10 years' time, the digital age will be something completely different, right? That our children will adapt to that when the time comes. I learned how to use my phone from my children, right? They knew how to use a phone before we even had a phone. So it's kind of in their DNA. So I wouldn't really worry about being up on the digital game when you have a young child. To me, it's more about protecting their brain development. So for the 22-month-old who, is it the 22-month-old? I forget. But anyways, any child who you feel is having problems with screens, this is telling you very clearly that it is an issue, because screen time, the way that the screen works and these miniature little lights are being projected onto their eyes and brains, it's a form of addiction. It's a form of this drug. And that is why, unfortunately, screens are such amazing babysitters, because children will just be mesmerized and just sit there with their developing brain on pause and then just completely in trance. When we take it away, it's like, taking an addiction away. So know that you're doing something right by taking it away. It might be difficult for a few days, but soon, I promise, they will forget, as long as it's not around to remind them that, screens exist. Like, wean them off of it if you want, little bit by little bits, but in the end, try as much as possible to just be a screen-free home, and life will be that much easier, I promise. All righty. Sorry, that was my soapbox of no screen.
We have a question in the chat from Elizabeth, who's asking about siblings, a 5 and a 7-year-old, who fight about being first for everything.
Elizabeth, is that you that's on that I see? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you want.
So our boys are now 5 and 7.
Okay.
And we find that there is always bickering about who goes first. And it is, Mom served my dinner first. I finished my food first. I wash my hands first. I get out the door first. I reach the car first. I get in the car. Between the two of them, it's this constant bickering. And we find ourselves saying things like, well, now both of you have to walk side by side, right? No one's first. And we try to set an example, right? We say, have you ever heard mom and dad say me first, me first? Or do you just see that whoever ends up in whatever position walks that way? But then when they're walking side by side, one starts to walk faster than the other, and then the other, I'm trying to understand what's going on in their little heads. And we thought that if we were the example, and we will point out when we get to the car, did you notice that mom and dad didn't mention anything about who got first to the car? the setting the example doesn't seem to work. So
Right.
I'm wondering if you might have an idea of what's happening maybe in their little brains about the desire to be first.
What is happening, I can't be 100% sure, but I think it's just, it's part of our society that is somewhat competitive, that I'm sure they're getting that at school, of just sports and all of that. It is always this competition of, who's doing it better, who's first, who's made more money, who's, we're in a very kind of competitive society. What here, and it's, you have two boys that are still not quite in the same kind of developmental plane. I've explained this before. We go through these 4 planes of development, kind of these, what Montessori called rebirths. And there's the first 6, and then there's 6 to 12. So your 7-year-old is in this second plane already, where he's more about, doing the right thing, about social etiquette, justice, all of this. So you can reason with him a little bit more than you can with the 5-year-old. So that being said, I really want to encourage you with, whatever you and your husband, do when you're trying to discipline them, is try as much as possible to always put them in the same boat, where it's, it's about when there's something, when they're bickering and everything, is really saying, I trust that you two can figure it out. So really always trying to give them the notion that they can find solutions together, because the beauty of siblings is they will always have each other. We're not always going to be around to step in and be the negotiator. So we really want to help them kind of develop those skills early on. So really putting them in the same boat. And then, the whole first thing, all that, I wouldn't make too big of a deal with it. I think it will honestly kind of pass. I know it kind of sounds annoying, and it's like, oh, really, but just kind of let it go. And then once in a while, maybe play the game of, oh, I'm last, like, make being last fun. Like, oh, mom's the last one to get in the car today, so that they can kind of like, oh, wait, what's going on? It's not always about being first. Would be my way of kind of, changing that dynamic. But, it's always just reminding them that it doesn't matter who is first. I love you both the same, and you're both my, boys, and we're a family, and we're the best family, and all 4 of us are first because we love each other. It's just like, don't make too big of a deal, because I think that that's always with children, when we kind of, stay on those things, that's when they kind of want to poke at it even more. So hopefully that helps.
Well, we've done this, having them, because they push each other to try to get out of the door first.
Okay.
So when it becomes physical is when we say, this is not okay, right?
Yeah.
You're yanking on each other, pushing each other, trying to get in front of the other. And so we have said, we're not leaving the house. We can't walk out of the store until the 2 of you figure out who's going to go first. And then it goes like this. The younger one will say, okay, you can go first. And then the older will say, well, no, you can go first. And then the younger will again say, no, you go first. And then the older will say, okay. And that's a pattern that we've noticed, that when we say work it out between the 2 of you, they both initially try to kind of, give it up. And then the 7-year-old almost always will snatch it up before the youngest. And we feel it's really unfair. And then the youngest ends up upset, because they think, oh, I thought we were both going to be nice to each other and you were going to let me have it. And he doesn't.
Right. And so that's when I think we need to have conversations with them, and maybe not in the moment, but maybe later at dinner time of, I've noticed that you two are trying to be very polite to each other and make sure who goes first, but let's make sure that we each get a turn. And maybe sometimes we need to let daddy out the door first, or mommy out the door first, or let's really learn to take turns. But unfortunately, I think a firstborn is a firstborn and will always be the firstborn. Like it's just it's just part of it. And I can say that from being a secondborn, and it's just I think that's birth order does definitely play on the dynamics of who we are and how we get along with. So he's bigger, he's stronger, he's older. It's kind of normal, and his little brother will catch up to him one day, and he won't always be the first one. So it's I wouldn't make too big of a deal, but definitely come back every once in a while and maybe let also the 5-year-old express their feelings and things like that. So we can work it out as a family, and maybe the older brother can also have some suggestions as how to do things.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So any other? Yes.
We have another question from Mona. Going back to the screen, however, Mona's saying that they have a TV in the
Can you speak up a little bit? I can hear you very well.
Because my mic is here. She's saying that they have a TV in the living room, but that her and her husband are the only ones who watch it. And they've made the decision to not allow screen time for their 19-month-old, like you suggested. But their concern is just that the TV is in the living room, it's near the child's toy shelf, and he doesn't pay attention to it because they don't use it around him. But they're just wondering if it's worth removing the physical TV, or if it's all right to just keep it.
No, if it's not on when he's there playing and everything, and it's not an issue, no, I don't see. I've also seen in homes where the TV is just like maybe playing music, so it's used for something else. You could always cover it with something if you felt, I've seen like nice covers that are kind of like a painting, so it looks like there's a painting in the living room. But no, I think that if it's just part of the environment, it's not on, it won't affect him at all. It's when there are homes that I've been into where the TV is on all the time. It's just there as background noise, as company. It's just, people have those habits of having it on. So there's somebody else in the room with them. They're sometimes not even in the room, and it's there, they're hearing things. And that's when we need to be extremely careful. Because to that point, and even with like radios and things like that, because there's research that has been found that the idea of having a constant background noise, and when I say noise, I mean most often somebody talking, whether it's the news or a show or something, it is very satisfying to the adult, because they're getting information, they're getting, intellectual stimulation, and they tend not to be in communication with the young children. So we're not giving proper language to the young children that are around us, because we're satisfied, right? We're thinking in our head, we're hearing these news and all of this, and we're no longer communicating. So there are a lot of research about how the background noise actually dampers language development in young children. So I would definitely be concerned about that. But it sounds like you just have a television that just is a piece of furniture, and that's fine. So no worries there.
Right. We have another question. It's again in relation to the screen time, but this time based a bit more with the relationship with the grandparents. So it's from Nithya Lechumi, who's saying that at their home they have zero screen time, but at the grandparents, their 3.5-year-old boy is always on like the iPad or the TV, and they say no to him. But when he goes to his grandparents and asks for the screen, and as some grandparents do, they are much easier to get to bend. And they've said that they tried speaking to the grandparents, and it's in vain. They live in the same building, so he goes there often, and then when he goes to pick him up and find him watching TV or the iPad, she gets very frustrated and starts to get very upset, full of rage and furious. And as much as they try and be calm and gentle, when they bring them back home after a few minutes, they lose their patience, and they don't know how to control the screen time when it's outside of their hands, and the fact that it kind of makes them lose their calm and gentle parenting mojo.
Right. That's a difficult one. And that's why I said, it's a 21st century, big parenting issue, because, probably, when I went to my grandparents, it was maybe candy that they gave me, but it wasn't screen or things like that. So here, for one, I would really, check in with yourself as to what is it about this situation that is triggering you so much, that is making you lose your cool. Because it sounds like, because you're discovering that, your son has been in front of the screen and the iPad, it triggers something in you, and you lose your kind of that self-control we were talking about. So really check in with that of, is it there's something that you're afraid of? Is that something that you're really wanting to tell the grandparents? And here, I don't know if these are your in-laws or your own parents, but that can be a tricky situation right there of how do we talk to our elders, in a respectful way, and kind of impose in a way our way of parenting. So there, what I would strongly, suggest is, with the elders, with the grandparents, is to maybe try to have a sit down with them, just with them, without the children, and maybe share some information about just screens and brain development, because they want the best for their grandchildren, right? But if they know for a fact that it would be much, much better to, fold the laundry with their grandson, or go out and garden, or cook, or show them how to sew or knit or do other things, they will understand. I think they also need probably suggestions as to what to do instead of the screen. And then really, as much as you can, if you can impose that, your child only gets 20 minutes a day, for example, right? So that there is something, like, don't take it completely away from them, because it's probably for the grandparents also a moment of, like a breather for them. Maybe it's their way of being nice or whatever. I mean, I know at Eliza's grandparents' home, the TV is on all the time, and that's just something that is part of the way that they live. And now that my children are older, it's fine. It's true that when they were younger, I would say, oh, let's go outside, let's go for a bike ride, let's do things. But I also knew that when I left them there, because I would sometimes, have to go back to work or whatever, I knew that was out of my control. So I think sometimes we have to accept the fact that if we are asking other caregivers to take care of our children, we trust them, we're not putting our children in harm's way, we also have to let go of the control of what's going on during the day. It sounds like it would make it easier for you, at least, that there isn't so much screen time right before you come and pick up your son, because then there wouldn't be that rupture of it. So maybe you can ask after a certain hour, there's no screen time, things like that. That's what I would try. First, check in with yourself. What is it that's triggering you so badly? Secondly, find some good scientific information to share with the grandparents. Thirdly, give them other options of what to do instead of the screen. And then, ask if we can limit actually the time of day and how much. Hopefully that can help. I know this is a tough one. All righty.
Radio, we don't have any more questions in the chat. So we have a question from the Google form from Rockyo, who has children aged 3 and 6 years old. And they've asked about how they're implementing Montessori in the home with the children. And what are your thoughts on children going to a traditional school and parents implementing Montessori at home? They find that they cannot afford Montessori school for their children, even though they would like to, and they would like to know your perspective on being able to manage both sides.
Lovely, lovely, lovely question. And I'm one of those parents, because I actually worked in a Montessori school, and it was very hard for me not to have my youngest, so Eliza's little brother. Eliza did go to a little Montessori preschool and then went to traditional elementary school, and my son went to a traditional preschool and traditional education. I honestly believe that Montessori can be incorporated in any type of family, in any way that you are educating. I have worked with families whose children go to Waldorf schools, and we do Montessori at home. There are families that go to traditional schools, and we do Montessori at home. Montessori is really, it's so much more than an educational method. It's really this idea of understanding human development, understanding that our children are just eager to learn, and they're curious and they want to participate. So if you have your child in a traditional school, do everything you can so that you can support and help them succeed in that manner. But you can also complement with ways of maybe teaching the same thing at home, but especially by incorporating just practical life, just participating in the chores at home, in just doing other things. We do a lot of handwork, for example, in Montessori. So for example, sewing and knitting and crochet and all of that, those are probably not things that we're going to learn in a traditional school, but it's definitely something that we can do on a cozy weekend afternoon. So be okay with just presenting other ways of learning at home, and it's definitely completely doable. So do not fret. You do not have to have your child in a Montessori school to be able to do Montessori parenting, and I think I'm the proof of it. So so there.
Lovely. So we have 2 questions from Anastasia. The first one is very straightforward. Anastasia has a 3.5-year-old and is asking, what do we do when they don't listen? How do we react?
And how old did you say?
3.5.
3.5, not listening. That sounds pretty familiar, right? And that is a child at 3.5 is a child who is really developing their will, right? We are those first 6 years, all through life really, but it's pretty intense. Those first 6 years is they are developing their will. They understand that they have a choice about their life. They can say no. They can walk away, right? They have choices. So they want to make those choices, right? So here, the best way that we can help them develop their will is to give them choices. So we try as much as possible, instead of saying, yes or no, or do this, do that, we try to ask curiosity questions. That's actually one of the tips that I will have later on in the challenge, but it's really about curiosity questions as opposed to giving orders, because let's be real. As parents, we tend to give orders quite a bit, right? We think we gotta get this, run this ship, and everything needs to fall into place, and we're constantly telling our children what to do. So if we can take a step back and observe how we are being, and think like, is this a way that I would like somebody to always be telling me what to do, when to do it, and such? I think we can have a lot more compassion and patience for this very young human being. I mean, they've only been on the planet for 3.5 years, right? And they are just trying to make a statement. I'm here. I'm going to take up some space, and I want to make some choices. So here, as opposed to getting kind of frustrated with the, with the no and all of this, is really just saying, oh, it sounds like you really don't want to put on your shoes now. Well, what is it that we need to do to go to the park? It's like, or maybe give a choice of the shoes, or maybe, it's always to try as much as possible. When I say give choices, as much as possible, just 2 very simple choices that you are 100% okay with, right? So we're not going to give a child the choice to eat ice cream for dinner if that's not something that we believe is correct. If it is, fine. But, you always want to give choices that you are going to be able to follow through with, which is one of the tips that I shared yesterday, is to always be in a place where you can follow through. So when your child says no, and I don't know, what the situation is, but if they say no, you can say, oh, I see you're not wanting to do this. Well, do you want some help, or do you want to, do something else? Or it's just the 2 choices so that they can choose from. And this helps them develop their will. And no, they have a right to say no. And it's something very strong at one point, in the early child development, it's a very powerful word for them, because they've heard it so many times from us, right? They've heard us tell them no so many times that now they get to use it, and they get to tell us no. So we hear it, we acknowledge it, and we give them a choice. So hopefully that helps.
Radio. Anastasia's next question, again about her 3.5-year-old, is that they are very organized as a family, and that makes their child feel secure. But when something changes, she freaks out. So how can she help her to be more flexible? And how can you accept her feelings, but explain to her that things can be different?
Yes. And this 3.5 is perfectly normal. This is something that they are extremely sensitive to order at this age. And some children are going to be more sensitive than others, right? There's actually a beautiful story. I want to say it's in The Absorbent Mind from Dr. Maria Montessori, but she talks about, and this was a young child, but for some reason, they had a very regular routine, and they would go to the park and whatever. And the one day the mother wore a different coat, or no, she was holding her coat on her arm or something. It was something that was just slightly, out of whack. The child was super upset until the mother put on the jacket. And then it was like, okay, I've got, and it's true, because order is really gives them that sense, like you say, of security, of this is a safe place. I trust the world that I've been born into. So it is a real sense of security. So routines are very important, and I like to call them, more of a flow of your day, and try as much as possible to stay in it. And if it does need to change, just as much as you can, try to give them some warning. That's all. Just let them know, today we're not going to go to the park because we have a doctor's appointment. So we're going to change up a little bit. So just give them fair warning. And that's okay, because, and if they are upset, you can just say, yeah, you're upset because we're not doing the same thing today as we did yesterday. And it's okay to be upset. I understand. That's it. Like I think we need to try to get out of this idea of we need to fix everything, and children should never be upset. This is just their way of expressing and communicating. They won't be this upset always, right? They'll have maybe harsh words or have different ways of letting us know, but this is just, a 3.5 way of communicating, and it's okay. So, and sometimes, you can also, if you feel that it is something that is, that concerns you, maybe try to plan some disruptions, right? So that you can kind of train. So, things of going to the park a different way, or maybe, getting dressed before eating, or just changing up the routine of just saying, would you like to try something different? And that's okay. And, like I say, depending on the personality, depending on the child's temperament, some children are extremely sensitive to order, but all children universally are sensitive to order during the first 6 years of life. So just know that this is perfectly normal for this age group.
The next question we have in the chat is from Bhavana, who is asking how to support the academic growth for a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old in homeschooling, and if they can follow curriculum, or if taking Montessori assistant training is a good idea.
So you have a 3 and a 6-year-old, and you're wanting to homeschool. I am not a homeschooler myself. I thought about it, but I never stepped into it. I think I just commend all of you who are, because I think it's a beautiful and important role. I think for homeschoolers, I think it's really important to ask yourself, what are the best ways that you can show up to, right? Because I think that is the beauty with homeschooling, is there's just so many different ways. So there are some very day-to-day curriculum that you can follow. There's now wonderful, global groups of homeschoolers that support each other. There are unschoolers and world schoolers and so forth. So to me, it's really, you get to do it your way. You get to, and this again is going to depend on the country that you're in, because I know some countries, don't really allow homeschooling. Others support it. I know here where I am in San Diego, there are accredited homeschooling organizations. So, they even get to go to the lab of the public school every once in a while, things like that. So it's really, you have to find how you best function, because you're the one that is kind of in charge. So, would it make you feel better to have a curriculum? Or would you prefer just following their lead? I have, for example, a very simple chart that I created that you can get on my website that is from 2.5 to 6, which has all the Montessori lessons on it. Well, that's going to be very hard for somebody who, doesn't maybe have some of the Montessori background or some of the training. So maybe something like that wouldn't be for you. I've worked with families who homeschool, who have lots of different curriculums. I've just helped them kind of set up the environment and a flow to their day. And again, if you're homeschooling, you get to choose the flow of the day, because if you work better, after lunch, then that's your time. If you work best, right from the get-go with breakfast, and you want to get kind of the academic things out of the way, then you can do it that way. So I don't know if I'm really answering your questions, but for me, homeschooling is such a personal thing. And you're welcome to email me. I can send you some information. I do have more for the elementary age children, some ideas. But it's really, first checking in what appeals to you about homeschooling and how you think you should do it. Hope that helped.
The next question from the chat is from Anna, and she's asking about sleeping for a 2-year-old boy. He hates to go to sleep, and physically he's perfectly fine. And she's wondering if her pregnancy could have any effect on the fact that her child hates going to sleep.
So Anna, and if you're here and you want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to. I am not a sleep like a sleep specialist, and I feel extremely lucky that I had 2 very good sleepers, Eliza being present, who just loved her bed and just would be happy to be put down and go to sleep. So is that Anna that I'm hearing?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay. Would you like to share a little bit more of what you were mentioning?
Yes, my little boy is hating to get to sleep, especially at night.
Okay.
And now he's talking more than before, and he's saying, "I'm scared," and I didn't know what he means about that.
Okay. So like I said, I am not a kind of a sleep person, but I would I would definitely try not to force him to be alone, or if there's something that, especially if he's talking now, what is it that you're afraid of, and I don't know where he got ideas that he needed to be afraid, whether it's the dark, whether there's shadows, I don't know, but it's really important to reassure him as much as possible. I don't know what your pregnancy was like or your birth. I kind of doubt that it has anything to do with it. I mean, there's some children, there's some people that are very good sleepers, and there's some that really have trouble finding sleep and resting, and are concerned, and noises and such. So it's finding what your son needs most. One thing that I will suggest is, if you and I don't know if you know about Clubhouse, but Clubhouse is an app that is kind of like a radio where we have conversation. And every Wednesday, I am on Clubhouse with a group of other child development experts, and there are several sleep coaches in there. So I think that might be a better place to come ask those questions. And you're welcome to either on Instagram, DM me and I can share that with you, or email me and I can share that information with you. But it's really trying to find what it is that is going to help your your son feel secure, right? It's really about reassuring him everything is fine. And I'm right here, I love you. Maybe you need to put a photo of you and him next to him. Maybe it's just he needs a little stuffed animal. It's just finding what it is that will help him kind of go to sleep. And then also, I don't know if you've been co-sleeping, you've been sleeping together or not, or something happened where he's gotten afraid, and we just need to figure out what that is to relieve it. So hope that helps. I'm sorry I'm not more of a sleep person, but it is a very personal and delicate situation.
Right, we have another question in the chat from Preeti Matakuri, saying they have a 6-year-old child. He's always happy, but these days he is focusing on what went wrong and being upset. So, for example, if the day goes and full of fun and surprises for him, but one small thing doesn't go as he planned, he's more upset about it than outweighing the happiness. So we try to explain to him that most of these things depend on other elements like climate, cost, etc. But that's not really helping. So please suggest a solution.
Well, I can relate to the 6-year-old. These days have been, there's been a lot going on in our world, in our just how things have kind of been put upside down. So I can really sympathize and have a lot of compassion for our younger humans who are just entering adulthood and work, or our younger ones who are excited to go to school, and now they either can't or have to wear masks or things like that. So I think there is an energy that is universal that is somewhat upsetting. So I would just give that kind of permission to your 6-year-old, for one. And then the other thing is really this notion of building resilience, of knowing that there are times when things don't always go our way, and that what is important is how we react, how we deal with it, that we always have a choice. And I think that is the most important thing that you can teach your son, is that he has a choice as to how he's going to react to a certain situation, right? He can choose to be very upset, or he can choose to go, oh, that's too bad, and let it go and choose a different activity. So it's really that notion that we as individuals always have a choice of what we're going to do next, how we're going to react to a situation and such. And I would have those conversations, not in the moment, but, after time, maybe finding some books, some stories that are about resiliency of children who, maybe had to endure a difficult situation and how they came out of it. I also really like the work of the Big Life Journal. Big Life Journal is kind of this, a woman who I actually interviewed. There's a podcast interview with her, Amanda, and it's really, she set out to create some books and journals and everything for children, all about the kind of the mindset and the development, the self-development work that sometimes we're called to do as adults. And she put it kind of in words for children, and it's really wonderful. So Big Life Journal would be something to look into, to help him process disappointment, basically, because that's really all it is, how are we going to process disappointment? And again, very much depends on personalities, on temperament, some people say on the zodiac signs, right? It on whether, you know, it's a full moon or a new moon or whatever. So there's plenty of elements that are going to kind of, you know, make us react differently. For me personally, I tend to just, you know, brush things off. I might be upset for a little bit. I might sulk, but you know, it's okay. I choose to let it go. There's other people that are going to hold on to it for a really long time. That's their choice. And there's nothing we can do about that, right? And that's also maybe your child's personality. So the only thing, you know, in a situation like that, I'm always careful as to, you know, is there depression? Like, is there something more? That's always, you know, what I would be concerned about. But it doesn't sound, you know, for your 6-year-old doesn't sound like it's anything like that, but it's just like, you know, they're going through just processing emotions, disappointment, and things. So if we can help him kind of get that resiliency muscle strengthen, so that because there will be a lot more disappointment and bigger disappointments in life. And so if we can give them the tools when they're young to be able to process that, then the better it is. All right. So I'm seeing that we're almost up on the hour. And I just wanted to just thank everybody for having come and showed up. We're a nice little group here, and especially for having joined this discipline challenge, which is something that I like to do every once in a while, because these are all tools that I discovered actually when my lovely Eliza that's here with us was around 8 years and her brother was 4. I had recently changed careers and decided to be a Montessori teacher. And oh my gosh, that was a big change, right? From going from having a private office in a company and just doing my graphic work to having to manage 25 little humans all day, and then coming home and having 2 young humans at home wanting my attention and all that. And I needed to up-level my skills and my discipline tools and everything, and really discovered positive discipline and how beautifully it blends with Montessori. So these are tools that I hope parents just integrate in their day-to-day lives into, you know, parenting from a place of respect, of compassion. And I say compassion because children are new to this planet, right? They're just trying to figure things out. Their most important work is to adapt to their time, place, and culture. And all we can do is to guide them and to help them along the way. So we need respectful tools to be able to do that, right? And so that's really why I wanted to do these and do these calls to support you and encourage you to try them out, and know that it's not always easy, because most of us weren't raised this way. We were raised more with, you know, an authoritarian parent who just told us what to do, and there was no ifs and buts about it. And you know, if we said no, we were sent to our room or whatever, or maybe, you know, another type of parenting. But we've come to realize that, okay, I might want to change some patterns, and these are things that I maybe didn't like as a child, and I want to try to be a different parent. So that's why I do these, and that's why I'm here for you. So I know that we have a few more minutes, and if there are some more questions, Eliza, I'm more than happy to carry on. If everybody wants to stay on, that is fine. I will stay on for a few more minutes.
We just have one more question in the chat. We have 2 more questions from the Google form, one of which is from Sunny, who's in the call. So the question that's in the chat just now is from Jacqueline, who says that she has a 15-month-old who sleeps independently on her floor bed. The room is Montessori aligned with the low shelf. However, when her child wakes up, she's not interested in anything except for running to the door and banging. But once she comes to the door, all she wants to do is read and play. So Jacqueline says, I understand she's still young and probably developmentally appropriate, but when do little ones play independently, or how can I encourage this?
Great question, and kudos to you for the Montessori floor bed and having her room set up for her to be independent. You know what? You might want to put a little basket with some books right by the door, so that when she walks over there to go bang it, well, there's books there. You know, maybe if you can remind her when you put her to sleep, to kind of have that repetitive story of, when you wake up, there's some books for you to read, and when mommy wakes up, she'll come read them with you, right? Like, you don't, to really kind of remind her of what is possible. And yes, 15 months is still very young to be able to, you know, understand everything that is expected of her and such, but it will come. It definitely will come when, you know, I would say a month or two's time, when she's going to start understanding that, you know, she can read a book by herself. But I would suggest telling her that story. I've also done with families where we create kind of a little sleep book, and this is more for families who, like, the sleep routine, you know, has become a little bit hectic. So we create a little sleep book with pictures of the child going through the different process, you know, of the going to bed. But you could do this for your daughter, where, you know, one of the pictures is when she wakes up, she's actually reading a book by herself. And then kind of another one later where, you know, mom comes in and gives her a hug and, you know, stays with her, things like that. So it's really, you know, it's really for us to remind our children of what is possible, because I think they don't necessarily know right away. And so it's just, you know, stories, reminders. Repetition is really important. And then again, it's maybe how you set up the environment, where there is kind of a little inviting little place near the door where she, you know, she would be intrigued by it. And, you know, you'll find her reading a book behind the door when you come in and get her in the morning. So hopefully that will help. Thank you.
The next question from Sunny in the Google form is, what is the difference between a strong-willed child and a stubborn child? So there's two examples, one of which is even for visiting the doctor for regular checkups, the child will cry her lungs out until they leave. No amount of talking or positive distractions will help stop the loud cries. She can recognize the doctor from a mile away. She says she gets the feeling she's an extremely aware and alert child, also intuitive. Is it because of any negative experience she may have had that she may not have understood? And the other example is that she won't put toys back in the shelf or empty the kitchen drawers, but will walk away when gently led to put them back. I've not been consistent myself in leading her to clear the mess. Will this lead to self-control / self-discipline issues in years to come? And the child is 22 months.
Okay. So a great question about the difference between will and stubborn. I kind of feel like they go hand in hand. Like, stubbornness is a stronger will. Maybe it's really, you know, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get my way. I personally don't consider myself stubborn. I've been told I'm very stubborn, so who knows, right? Eliza, I don't know what you think, Mom, but She's not going to say anything. She muted herself. No comments. But so yes, the will is really, like I said earlier, it's something that we need our help. We need to help our children develop. Like, it's very important. The tantrums that she, or the meltdown that she has is having when she sees this doctor, I would question, like, what is it? You know, that I think that children are extremely intuitive, and I feel that if there's something that is really giving her that much discomfort, maybe, you know, maybe there's something that's not right with this doctor and her. Like, it's okay, you know. And you know, Eliza's in front of me, so I keep on being reminded of examples with her. But when she was a young child, she would tell me about certain people that would, you know, walk into a room like that, she didn't think they were nice or feel them or whatever. And I have to learn to respect that, because I think we all have different kind of powers or intuition or such. So, you know, maybe try seeing a different doctor, like if that's a possibility, right? Because maybe there's just something, and it can be as silly as the way they look, about their smell, about the look of a room, that there's just something that just irks her and doesn't sit right with her. So to me, that sounds like it has nothing to do with will or stubbornness. It's more about kind of an intuitive something that's going on with her. So if it is at all possible, otherwise, well, it's really, you know, trying to work it out with the doctor of, you know, if he could try something else or put on a hat or make, you know, I don't know. It's hard. And it's true. There's some, you know, some doctors are wonderful with young children. Some aren't so great. So that's always difficult. But then the other thing about putting toys away, 22 months is still very young to be able to understand to put things away. So here again, I'm going to say the environment plays a lot. If we have too much around us, if there's too much for them to put away, they get very discouraged and just walk away. So if we can limit the amount of things that are in that drawer that she is taking in and out, then, you know, that might be a little bit more helpful. And then as much as possible to try to be consistent in going, oh my gosh, there's all these things on the floor. We need to put them back in the drawer. Can you, you know, I need your help. Will you help me? And if she says no, walk away, be okay with just putting them away. Like it's, you know, it's us modeling and us repeating that is going to be important. Like we cannot, you know, force them. It's more have fun doing it, make it look like, oh my gosh, this is so fun, right? of putting all this mess back. But then they will see that it's a good thing. Like it's not a chore or a negative thing to have to put things away. So hopefully that helps. All righty.
We just have one last question, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure. One last one, of course. And then I will be back, just so everybody knows, I will be back on Thursday at the same time, and then Saturday morning a bit earlier. And that will be kind of the conclusion of the Keep Cool and Carry On Discipline Challenge. So thanks again for coming and for joining me.
So the last question is a very straightforward one from Adayoki, who has an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And the question is, how do I get my 8-year-old to listen and stop with all the back talk?
That's unfortunately, that is the age, right? This is again, us, you know, an 8-year-old is in a different plane of development. And if anybody on the call has been following the Childhood Potential Montessori online conference that started yesterday, I highly suggest the talk yesterday that was available for lifetime access people, which was with Junifa and Simone, who wrote the Montessori Baby together, but they had a wonderful talk about the 4 planes of development, which is what Montessori called the rebirth, that basically every 6 years we go through these peaks and valleys, right? And so the 8-year-old is in that second plane where they're not that interested in order anymore. They're not really interested in personal care. They're, they're messy and just wanting to do other things. They're curious. They're kind of intellectually evolving, asking lots of questions and all of that. So for me, the back talk is really, I don't appreciate being talked this way. That's it. Like, you just really have to remind them that it's not like you cannot talk to me that way, because, I always say, like, when we tell children you cannot, they kind of look at you funny, like, but I'm doing it right now. Like, how can you tell me I cannot when I'm doing it? So it's more about trying to put it as I messages, and I don't appreciate when you talk to me this way. And I will not listen to it or put up with it, and you walk away, or you do what you need to do. But it's really important to put that boundary, just so they learn too, so that you're modeling what it is to set a boundary of how people are going to talk to you, right? And you can, again, acknowledge, I can see you're really frustrated, and this is not a way that we talk in our family. So I cannot let you, I don't appreciate the way you're talking. Would you mind repeating it in a different way? So really, and it's going to take some time, and it is frustrating, but it's how would I say? It's just a small sliver of time in their evolution. And we are here to set those boundaries with firmness and kindness, of just, maybe they're saying, is there a different way you could be asking me that or telling me that? Just so, they understand and they hear themselves, and try as much as possible not to take offense, which is, I think, the most important one, because we tend to take things personally when they really aren't. They are just trying to assert themselves and figure out what their place in society is. So hopefully that helps. All right. Well, this has been wonderful, amazing, wonderful questions. I'm in my happy place when I can just focus and hone in and try to support and encourage you as best as I can. I don't always have the answer, so that's why I, also have other resources. So if I've mentioned things, don't hesitate to email me or message me on Instagram if I said I had something for you. And it's been wonderful. Eliza, thank you.
It's been my pleasure.
And so Eliza and I will be back on Thursday morning, same time. Please, I encourage you to encourage others to join this challenge if you have found it helpful and supportive. The more parents and grandparents and caregivers we have kind of rethinking how what discipline is, I think the better off we are as a whole. So thank you all, and I will see you all on Thursday and via email. So thanks again. Bye-bye, everybody.